Alright, today's lesson is on the area of parallelograms as well as triangles. So when we look at parallelograms, we have a few different types. Rectangles and squares are included in those, and we're going to get a different equation or formula for those besides just a regular parallelogram. So the formula for the parallelogram is we're going to do base times height. Okay? A parallelogram has opposite sides that are parallel with each other. Okay? So lots of times you're going to see a parallelogram that looks like that. The side left and right, these opposite ones would be parallel, and the top and the bottom would be parallel with each other. Now when we say we're taking the base, we're taking the bottom figure here, or the bottom line, and then the height, we're not going to take this angled one right here. We're going to take an imaginary kind of dotted line there about how tall the actual figure is. That's going to be our height. And then for a rectangle, it is length times width, or we can even say base times height. It's whatever we'd like to do. Length, and there's the width. Alright, on all these geometry problems and anything we do, I do want you to go ahead and make sure you follow these rules. Number one, make sure you name the shape. Okay. Number two, write the formula. Every time you write the formula, it's going to help you remember it a little bit more. You're going to go ahead and substitute in the values. And then number four, you're going to go ahead and solve. And lastly, we want to make sure that we include our units. Okay, and it's going to be squared units. So, for example, we're going to have inches squared, centimeters squared. If there's no unit, we're going to do u squared for unit squared. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take these steps into our problems and see how we do. So our first example here is a rectangle. Make sure I write rectangle down. Okay. Formula for the rectangle is our length times our width. We're going to substitute in there. Our length is 13. Our width is 8. So I'm going to do 13 times 8. Gets me an answer of 104. And I'm going to add my units in, and it's feet squared. Number two, we have a rectangle again. Say length times width. We're going to do a 15.8 times 6. Let's do area equals. And then our area is going to equal 94.8 centimeters squared. Number three, we have a parallelogram. For our parallelogram, we're going to make sure we do base times height. So our area is going to equal base times height. And our base of this one, we have 9 going all the way across. And then we're going to do times 7 because that is the height of the shape. Whenever my base and my height meet, and this holds true for triangles, which we're going to do next as well, we always need to make sure that our base and height are perpendicular to each other, which means they make a 90-degree angle. So 9 times 7, and we get an area of 63 yards squared. Alright, so let's go ahead and do our area of our triangle. So the formula for our area of our triangle is going to be half base times height. Some people like to do base times height divided by 2. Oops. Whichever one you prefer. Okay? And the reason we're dividing it by 2 or multiplying by half, if we take a rectangle here, our formula for our rectangle is base times height or length times width. And then we're going to split it into 2. When we split it into 2 triangles, we actually split it in half. And so we're taking our area of our rectangle and we're dividing it by 2 or multiplying by 0.5, and that's going to get us half the area. Okay. Again, remember that the base and the height always make we'd say a right angle, or we could say a 90-degree angle. And then there's that word perpendicular. Okay. Alright, so here's some examples for it. So it is a triangle, so I'm going to write triangle. Formula is half base times height. So I'm going to go ahead and do half times my base, which is 6, times my height, which is 2, and I get an answer of 6. And I'm going to do units squared because there is no units with it. Right. Our second one, again, it is a triangle, so I'm going to write it. Formula is half base times height. Now this triangle is kind of moved a little bit. We have two sides that have 6, we have a side that has 8, and we have a side that is 4.5. Not a side, but that is our height of our triangle. And notice how we have our little right angle here. Okay, so I know that 8 and 4.5, so this is going to be my base, and then 4.5 is going to be my height because they make a right angle there. So half times 8 times 4.5. Okay. When I multiply all those together, we get an answer of 18 meters squared. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at number 3. Again, I'm going to write my shape. It's a triangle, half base times height. And I'm going to plug it in. So area is equal to my base, which is 42. So half times 42 times my height, which is 24. Plug that into the calculator and I get an answer of 504 meters squared. Alright, so now for the U try part. You guys have 6 different problems to go ahead and do. Notice on each of these that I do want to make sure you name the shape. I also want to make sure you write down your formula. If you can't remember the formula, look back in your notes that we just took on the correct formula to use, substitute it, and then solve and add the units. So you guys have some triangles, some parallelograms, and some rectangles to go ahead and do. So pause your video and try those. Number 1, you should have gotten it is a triangle, so you're doing half times base times height, giving you 77 units squared. Number 2 is a rectangle, so we're doing length times width, 124.8 yards squared. Number 3 should have been a triangle, which is your half times base times height, giving you an area of 176 units squared. Number 4 is a parallelogram, so we're going to use that base and height, and that is 135 centimeters squared. Number 5, we have a rectangle, length times width, so we're going to go ahead and multiply 2.5 times 7.2, giving me 18 inches squared. And then lastly is our triangle, and notice how our triangle up here is our perpendicular, our 90 degree, so we're going to use our 9 as our base and our 12 as our height, or vice versa, and we get 54 feet squared.